live. All right. Yes, we are live. We are live. So if you check your notifications, you might be able to share.
Yes, I
Welcome
will.
everyone to Conversations with Kara-Leah. My name is Kara-Leah. And this gentleman on the couch here with me today is Paul Cohen from
Hi everyone.
Bone Yoga. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for inviting me. I don't know quite how to tag this. Let me have a look. Yeah. Oh, here we go.
There you go. You work on that while I give you a little intro.
Excuse me, yeah.
Yeah, you do your thing. So I met Paul first. I saw him at some of the yoga festivals around town. I think NZ Spirit Fest, you were there.
I was.
Possibly New Zealand Yoga Festival. You might have been there. And I was like, what the hell is this bone yoga thing?
Yes.
And then he started to comment on some of my Facebook posts, and in particular, he commented on the gift economy and mentioned that this was a way that he was running his business. So, because I care about the gift economy and this evolution out of capitalism that is possible from the ground up if we so choose,
yes,
I thought
absolutely.
that I wanted to talk to you.
Cool. I'd like to talk about that.
Excellent. Where do you want to start?
So, well, the
Who
gift. Who am I?
Who are you? Where did you come from?
Where did I come from? I don't know. From my mother, I think. Apparently. If we talk about, I'm from the UK. I was I qualified as an acupuncturist in 1985.
Five Elements Acupuncture?
Five Element Acupuncture at the J.R. Worsley School. And the school there's lots of different styles of acupuncture. So the style of acupuncture is really mind, body, spirit acupuncture, rather than looking at the symptoms as the main focus. You're looking at the person's emotions and their spirit as being the main focus. And after studying that for a while, I felt that I needed to get my hands on people. I mean, acupuncture is not really tactile unless you do some acupressure, massage, but in terms of just doing the acupuncture needle, I felt that I was missing out on the sort of tangibility that you can get working on someone and feeling this. If someone would say, I've got a backache, and I would not quite know how to feel what was going on with their backache, I would check the pulses and I would do something, maybe looking at working on the kidneys or working on the liver or whatever it might be. And I thought, well, I need to do a little bit more studying. And so I decided that osteopathy wasn't for me. Because it was a 7-year study and I wasn't really interested in doing a massive long study. But at that time in the UK, someone called Fritz Smith, who had created a bodywork system called Zero Balancing, started to influence a lot of people at that particular college, Five Element College. My father, interestingly enough, was also an acupuncturist. He retired when he was 56, took a part-time retirement of being a senior lecturer of mathematics at Southampton University.
Right.
Took up acupuncture, qualified a year before I did.
Oh, wow.
And also became a zero balance and a zero balancing teacher.
So he went from mathematics, which was intensely logical, intellectual,
and he was still always
and into acupuncture.
Into acupuncture. And I remember when I was probably 15 talking to him about acupuncture, and he would say something like, "Oh, it can't be proven." You know, that's right. That was very supportive for me as well. I actually got to know my dad then. You know, people said it must be amazing having your dad on the course, and it was really after I started to explore going into the zero balancing bodywork that our relationship started to build a lot more then as well.
So zero balancing is body work. I've never heard of it.
It's zero balancing is described as really looking at the interface between Eastern and Western philosophies. So we're looking at structure and looking at energy. But the primary focus, Fritz Smith, the founder of Zero Balancing, an extraordinarily gifted healer, communicator of touch, was an osteopathic MD. His father actually was a chiropractor and was honoured with the Chiropractor of the Year in America, I think when he was still working when he was 92 years old.
Oh my goodness.
So Fritz comes from that background, but then he started to, because we're talking now about the late 70s, when there was a big movement and exploration into alternative things, and he would go to places like Esalen, and he would be introduced to more energy moving things, because he was an osteopathic MD, so he was an osteopath. They amalgamated the osteopathic schools with the doctors so that they could, for whatever reason they did that, and so he became an osteopathic MD. So his understanding of the skeleton was quite amazing. And so he was doing his exploration as part of his bachelor program in acupuncture, and he would be coming up to people and saying, well, if you hold the bone like this is the structural part, but if I now do something different to it and I engage it in a particular way, now I've got the energy that's within the skeleton, within the bones. And it used to be called, in the early days it was called fritzing, a bit like Rolfing.
Right,
So Rolf.
after, wasn't it?
Because I don't think
Fritzen.
smithing wouldn't be very good. And so someone got off the massage table, the story goes, and there's lots of different takes on the story, that someone got off the table and said, hey, look, Fritz, I feel like I've been balanced back to the point of zero. And then he went, I'll call it
zero
balancing.
balancing. Okay, so that makes sense.
So that's where the name came.
Right.
And it's, it has its kind of challenges, a name like that, because you don't quite know what it is. But I think, when you get past the name and you start seeing or feeling what it does, so it really goes, I think, very much in kin with the acupuncture school. So the acupuncture school, we set it up, was, as I mentioned, it was looking at the spirit of the person. So regardless of symptoms, so someone would come in and they have a symptom in the Five Elements school, that's the last thing you really want to focus on. You want to work, do I need to work on them at a level of physicality, of their mind, emotion, or their spirit? And if someone is ill on the spirit level, then there's no point working on the physical level, because it's not going to change.
Yeah.
And so the zero balancing really went hand in glove with Five Element Acupuncture. In fact, in its early days, everybody that was a zero balancer was also an acupuncturist, and from the Five Elements school. And it started to grow and become more widespread. Other people from different schools and different skills were becoming involved with zero balancing, and it's probably unusual now for acupuncturists to be on board in that, particularly in that same way.
So when you became a zero balancing practitioner, were you still working as an acupuncturist?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So you were combining whatever the client needed?
Absolutely. So I had a multidiscipline practice. So I had a number of other therapists that were working in the same clinic as me. And so clients would come along and they would say, this is how I'm feeling, and I would say, hey, let's try some zero balancing. And zero balancing actually became my main part of my work. It was my passion for over 20 years. And I kind of lived and breathed it. I brought it into New Zealand when we emigrated here in 2000. And I lived and breathed it daily, nightly. It was deep in my bones.
I like that. So then when did zero balancing and yoga, how did you get into yoga then?
I think it was in 2015. I was seriously ill with enlarged prostate. So I had a catheter fitted. It was really challenging being a healthcare practitioner and being so needy. I tried for, I don't know how long it was, 5-6 days, to try and see if I could get myself to pee without having to have a catheter fitted. And it didn't work. I went and saw an acupuncturist, went to see David Craddock, you might know from acupuncture in Parnell, got me peeing again. And I thought, yeah, I know, it was awesome.
Relief,
it was awesome. It's one of the worst things in the world, not being able to pee when your bladder's full and it all tightens up and you try, and it was a hideous experience. And I decided that I needed to do something for myself more. So if you look at acupuncture, if you look at zero balance, and this is really, you get done to. I give someone a session, they come to me, they go away, they come back. And I thought, well, I actually need a bit more than this. I need to have some kind of a practice. And I decided that I would do yoga every day for a year.
Wow.
And I posted up on Facebook a daily photograph of me doing yoga. Sometimes it was in a yoga stance, and sometimes it was just my big toe, because 365 days of photos was you had to be quite creative with your photography work.
Yeah, I know all about that. So had you done a lot of yoga prior to making that commitment? Because that's bold, 365 days of daily yoga.
Yeah, and not in that. I've explored yoga since I was probably about 18. Mm-hmm. I was, a lot of people were doing yoga. I went into the world of Vipassana, mm-hmm. and we became really serious Vipassana meditators. We lived in a community in the UK, which was the only lay community for the Vipassana Ubakin tradition that has ever existed in the world. Mm-hmm. So this was a hub for people who were involved with Vipassana to come in, and they would travel around the world doing whatever they do, going to India, going to Japan to earn money so that they could spend 6 months living in India, and it was a very very cool time and really interesting experience. The sitting still for me really didn't work. I think I did probably 20 years of really serious. So in Vipassana, if you're a serious Vipassana person, you do an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening. So my yoga, I committed myself to doing a minimum of 20 minutes. I thought, I'm going to do something that's really achievable. Mm-hmm. And most of my yoga sessions are actually longer than 20 minutes. But
it gets you on the mat though, doesn't it?
Gets me,
that minimum of 20.
Gets me on the mat. And I did a course just down the road here with Donna Fahy. And I saw that there was Neil and Kara doing their teacher training, and I thought, well, if I really want to understand yoga, I need to at least teach it or learn to teach it.
Yeah.
So I signed myself up for the 200 hour, and I did the 200 hour, and at the end of the year I did myself. After my first year of yoga every day, I needed to commit myself a bit more, so I did yoga twice a day, every day, which I've now done for about another 3 or 4 years. So I do yoga.
Congratulations.
My commitment is 20 minutes before noon and 20 minutes after noon.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where I am, who I'm with, I go and do it. Even if I'm sitting down, I'll do my yoga, some kind of a practice. Yeah. Or if I'm watching the rugby, I'll do my yoga on the floor, and I'll do that. So I'm not precious about, having to go into my really cool, nice, awesome yoga studio to do it. I can do it on the living room floor as well.
Yeah. What did you notice when you committed to physical practice for 365 days?
Yeah.
Did much change or shift? Or
I think yes, and I think it's hard to quantify those things. I come from a stiff stock. So you get those people that are really
they're so
nice and blended.
Yeah.
When I was a 5-year-old at school, I couldn't sit cross-legged on the floor. My legs would be up here, and kneeling was also uncomfortable. I played soccer. I did sports massively when I was a teenager. I couldn't even get anywhere near bending over to touch my toes. So my flexibility, I'm more flexible than I ever have been. And I suppose really a lot of it is looking at that curiosity around movement and stillness, being present but moving. Yeah. And being a Sagittarian monkey, sitting still for hours and hours on end. I want to be climbing up trees and putting my tail around something and swinging. So it was, for me, it was quite hard work. And I think there are some people who that daily ritual of going through your body fits easier. So for me, looking at combining that inner awareness in a way with of the Vipassana insight meditation with mindful movement, looking at working with the breath, and then being curious about my passion and my skill, which is the skeletal system, and working on the skeletal system.
So all of these things started to come together and led you to bone yoga. So obviously it focuses on the bones, the skeletal system. I've never thought about my bones so much. And
I know, it's very cool. I love it. I tell you why I like it, because the stuff that I communicate to people haven't thought about it much. And so it really takes your your curiosity to working on another level. So if you look at the bone is it's a living tissue. The forces that come through us, the bigger the force goes through the skeleton, very different from going through the soft tissue. It has piezoelectric qualities. That means piezoelectric qualities. So if I knock a bone, the vibration gets propagated along its length. Very different from if you work on the soft tissue of the body where it just gets dispersed. It's a subconscious tissue.
Okay, so explain that, because I'm fascinated with this subconscious.
Yes.
So when you say the bone is a subconscious tissue.
Well, I think if we look at what I'm able to move or do consciously, I can move my shoulder because my muscles here. I can't move my bones separately. I can't. I can only move my bones in relationship to my musculature.
Yeah.
So then you've got the ligaments and the bones. My understanding around them is they're similar energetic qualities. They're both subconscious tissues. So I can't move my ligaments. My ligaments are there. They're designed to be there to help restrict and over a big movement of my joints. So it's there as acting as kind of guide ropes. Not quite guide ropes because the ligaments and the fascia, they're all kind of partly blend into one. But it's there to restrict me going too far into my end range of motion. But it's subconscious. It's my muscles that take me towards the end range. And then the ligaments then stop it going any further. But then there's that relationship that you have via the ligaments from one joint to another joint.
Right.
And if you work in a particular way, by taking some of the looseness out of the tissues so that you engage the ligaments, you can start to then work on the skeletal system via the ligaments and the skeletal system specifically on its own as well.
So the ligaments are like an access
Ligaments are an access
for the skeletal system.
So you've got muscles attached to bones via tendons, ligaments attached from bones to bone. Basically, in a real simple way of talking about it.
And so do ligaments elongate?
There's certain ligaments, they're mainly collagen fibres, so there's a certain elasticity to them, and then they come back and they normally come back to their original length.
Right.
So they can be overstretched, but they don't kind of have that kind of stretchable fibre that you might think of an elastic band would have.
So if you're doing a yin pose, where you're in something for 3 to 5 minutes, is that having an impact on the ligaments?
Absolutely.
For the ligaments?
Yeah. So, and sometimes it's difficult to know what's ligaments and what's muscles that's preventing you to
because that's what I'm curious about, right? Because my hamstrings have historically been really tight. And I'm like, is it muscular or is it
Well, if your hamstrings are tight, it's muscular.
Because there's no ligament that would inhibit that.
Oh yeah, you've got certain fascia and stuff that could do, but it's probably more musculature, I would think.
Curious. So then when you're working with bone yoga, you're instructing asana in such a way that allows people to access their skeletal system.
Yes, yeah. So I designed the bone yoga sequence that I continue to explore as part of an advanced zero balancing program when I was still part of the zero balancing world. I retired from zero balancing in 2017 because there were things within the organisation that didn't sit well with me in terms of what it was originally. For me, it was such a cool organisation to be involved with. The technique is still fantastic, the zero balancing, but I needed to move away from the organisation because it really, really wasn't serving me. But prior to retiring from teaching zero balancing, I designed an advanced workshop for zero balancing practitioners, which was looking at, I called it the interface of zero balancing and yoga, the interface of ZB and yoga. So what it looked at is the blend of how you could then use and utilize the engagement principles that we work at in zero balancing, and how you can use those same principles in something that you do for yourself rather than being done to.
Right. So in zero balancing, a practitioner is doing something to a client.
You're lying supine on the table, and I come up and I engage in that way. So I've also developed now bone yoga into bone yoga bodywork. So it's now got the zero balancing, the cool universal zero balancing stuff with the stuff that I'm also exploring as well, and being really mindful of the intellectual property rights that exist within the zero balancing world, but also looking at how the focus of the zero balancing bodywork in terms of yogic principles, in terms of looking more at the breath move, in terms of looking at asura and sukha in the body. So you've got firmness and you've got pliability, and how you can relate those in your method of touching when you're working. So very, very similar, but coming from a slightly different angle, slightly different glasses on to that fit, I think, really nice hand in glove with the yoga world.
So when you're doing bone yoga body work, is the person still like a passive receiver, or is there more?
A bit of both. There's some passive stuff and some of the engagement principles that we use, but then I'm also looking at using the bone yoga sequence that we do in bone yoga as part of the therapy. So for instance, if we've got the feet in constructive rest, knees pointing to the ceiling, feet flat on the floor, and the person engages and does this movement. I can tell you a bit more about that in a minute, but it does this movement. So in the bone yoga bodywork, I would do this movement for them, but they would have to be passive during the movements and letting go of anything, any tensions that they might feel. And we, but basically, if you look at a joint, it has its range of motion. So it's got its total range of motion. And you don't take a joint to its total range of motion because that's going to damage the joint. And then within that, you've got a voluntary range of motion. And past the voluntary range of motion, you've got the voluntary end range of motion and the involuntary end range of motion. So the involuntary end range of motion is when people injure themselves in yoga, because it's not voluntary. I've extended too far that joint. It's involuntary, and that's how you can damage yourself. But the place that is just between the voluntary and the involuntary is basically consciousness, subconsciousness. It's that growing edge that allows for different possibilities and things to happen. So in the bone yoga and in the bone yoga bodywork, I'm really curious about the free range of motion. And then when the ligaments start to engage and gently going into the end range, and then exploring that and expanding that end range of motion. So theoretically, what happens is that your subconscious gets bigger because your involuntary becomes, what was involuntary is now voluntary.
Right, so the subconscious becomes conscious?
Yes, so that you have a bigger expanded consciousness.
Yeah. So does that mean that then people start to become more aware of emotional or mental content that was located in the subconscious?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And there are different, we have our issues in our tissues, and it's how we respond. So I respond to the world by saying, yes, I want this, no, I don't want this. Bone energy is subconscious, and it tends to hold more factual vibrations.
More factual vibrations?
Yeah, it's things that I can't do anything about, it's fact. So I say, there's this young child who's, and a story that I kind of like to make, he's got all his mates around, and he's got his girlfriend around, and he goes into the living room and says, "Hey Dad, can I have a sleepover with my friends? Because we've got a new tent." And then Dad says, "Oh no, Joey, you can't, because you still wet your bed." And he's 13 years old in front of his girlfriend and all his friends. And this is a story.
Yeah.
And what happens is the boy doesn't respond. and he starts to shiver in his bones, and it goes deep into his bones.
So there's an
and
internal emotional response that's not expressed.
Yeah, that can get locked in the bones.
Right.
So then that child then goes through life not hiding behind this shame, and it can then start to influence things in their everyday life from when they're 15, 21 into adulthood.
Because that's what I'm interested or curious about, because of course when I work with clients, I'm working a lot with these buried traumas, you could say. And it never occurred to me, I mean, I didn't think about where in the body they would be stored per se. It didn't occur to me they would be like in the bones.
Yes.
That makes so much sense, because of course the bones are they're the most dense aspect.
Most dense aspect.
Yeah, and
it's our core.
Yeah.
In Chinese medicine, it holds ancestral issues as well. So that there's the power of bone is and the focus of bone is quite amazing, really.
Mm-hmm. So intergenerational ancestral trauma is stored in bones.
Yeah. In China, and the kidneys were all over the bones in Chinese medicine. So that I think if I looked at in terms of my own body work, my best body work that I do is helping people through trauma, through abuse history. Because the other thing that I work really clearly with, I'm calling the one of the focuses of touch the Namaste Touch. And I know it's kind of a little bit in a sense, but the thing is, for me, Namaste, if you look at the pure essence of it, it's the goodness in me nourishes and honours the goodness in you. It's just so that if I touch someone with a Namaste touch, it's not me that's doing it, and I'm not doing it for any reason apart from trying to support that person to somehow release some held tension and to feel better. So I work with a really clear touch that has good touch boundaries. So I teach people how to touch rather than just touching. So if you go to a massage school, you learn how to do effleurage technique, and you learn how to do this. Hey, I feel really good. My shoulder ache and my headache's gone, and then the therapist goes home and says, every time I work on that person, I end up. There's streaming that happens. Streaming can happen the other way.
So streaming can go both ways. So you do make energy streaming between the practitioner and the client. And it's happening unconsciously.
Subconsciously.
Yeah.
So the kind of cool thing about bone is it's got some boundary to it. It's got some firmness. So you can have a better... So I touch with my bone with my client's bones. Right. I also work on soft tissue too. Yeah. But primarily that's the place of focus.
So can you feel when energy is streaming from you to the client, or from the client to you? And can you...
But I don't do it. So
I
can do it to jumpstart someone.
Yeah.
So and then but then you disconnect, because if you keep the leads connected, then I'm going to drain. So you can use it, but it's a thing that is probably the most common reason of burnout for people in hands-on therapy, is that they don't understand that touch boundary.
So when you talk about a touch boundary, can you explain that further? It's like a felt sense of your energy and the client's energy.
I'm clear where I start, and I'm clear where you start. I'm clear where I end, so that there would be a touch. So there would be a touch. If you do your fingers just like this. So if you pull this way and I pull this way, we have clear boundaries. I know where you are. Yeah. You know where I am. You can feel if I do any slight adjustments. So in a sense, we would work on that kind of level. So if I'm then going to say blend, let's just blend like this. Okay. So you need to have a really soft touch. I have a soft touch. And then now my sense of boundaries are less blurred. I don't quite know where my hand ends and your arm begins. So we're blurring, blending. This is done in craniosacral therapy, so it's a cool technique.
Yeah, I can.
But then when you stream,
yeah.
So if you just soften and relax, then if I start taking your energy, which is, let's not do that. But you can. But in practice, what I would do is I'd start taking your energy, and you'd start to go, and I start to fill up, and then we. So if you do that, and you don't know, if you're not skillful with your touch,
Yeah.
then you can get yourself in trouble, because my understanding is that if I'm going to best serve my clients, I need to have a really good integrity of who I am, where I am in this moment, and that we're not doing that thing where where I lose myself or they lose their self.
Yeah.
So,
So hang on, so
there's
there's three types that you went over there. There's the one where we feel the boundaries.
There was clear, having the clear boundaries of touch.
And then a merge, and then a streaming.
Then the blending and streaming, yes. Yeah.
Blend and streaming.
Yeah. And then you've got channeling as well, so that if you're a good channeler, you'll be coming from a different source. You're the conduit for that energy. The problem with channeling is sometimes the conduit person is not as pure as what was coming in, so what's going out might not be so pure.
Yeah, because it'll always be filtered or corrupted by what's
in some form or other.
Yeah.
So working at clear touch boundaries is really useful, and I think because we're not blurring those edges, or you're not streaming, you're not mixing those energies. It's easier to serve a client with their needs rather than and be objective to their needs. So when I'm working in bodywork, obviously there's physicality that I'm looking at helping, and then we're looking at signs that show maybe things are working at deeper levels. You can get changes in the breath cycle, you can get changes, other changes that happen, and then the emotions can start to come up. And you can be, with certain people, in the midst of a process-orientated bodywork session where stuff's coming up. It was hidden deep in their system, primarily that skeletal thing, and it started to express itself, so that the change from going into doing just a bodywork session to now doing a bodywork session that has to looking at accommodating some big emotional movement.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. If someone starts to have an emotional release on the table, when trauma starts to possibly come up, do you have a way to hold that or support the process?
Absolutely. And I can't really tell you now it's very difficult to say what it is.
Yeah, I understand that.
Because it's often in that moment.
Yeah.
But there are certain principles that I suggest that people do use, and depending on the type of emotion that someone's going through, then you would work differently. You would work differently with your touch. So when we're looking at touch, for instance, if someone is having an emotion that is going to get them crying, well, I would touch when I'm working. I would touch them in a particular way that would support that release of that crying, that grief, maybe something that they hadn't expressed before. But if someone's coming up and saying a big thing, saying, I'm so angry, it was my dad, and whatever it might be, well, I'm not going to touch them with helping them contact grief and let go of grief. I'm going to do something else, whatever anger, that might be. Yeah. And I wouldn't hold them with anger. I might give them the opposite of anger, so that my touch is giving them a different experience. I don't know. There's so many different.
Yeah, so it's quite intuitive on the table, depending on what's needed.
Yeah, I have difficulty with the word intuitive. Ooh. Not because I don't not because I don't agree with it. It's because I don't always think we're being intuitive.
Right. How would you describe it?
I think we're being our mental. It's if it's pure intuition, it's wonderful.
Right.
But often we go, you know what happens? Oh, I feel I should be, and then you don't, because your mind comes in and you do something else.
Right.
And you say, I should have followed my intuition. So if your intuition says don't. Sorry, if your intuition says don't. If your intuition says yes, think twice. But you don't really think. But you know what I mean? Just be careful that it really is. I don't have problems with intuition.
Right.
I have problems with it. Us feeling that it is our intuition when it's actually
not. Not necessarily.
When it's
gotcha.
When it's our ego, or it's when our desire to try and create change.
Yeah.
So
that's an interesting point, right?
It is.
The desire to create change. Because what I'm noticing working with clients is the moment that I have any desire to create change, I'm not being present with what is.
Yes.
And it's being present with what is, that the paradox, that's when things change.
Yeah. But there's this quality of attention. You can have the intention to do things, but the attention's really key. Old friend of mine was a Buddhist monk many years, and in one of his books, the phrase that always kind of rings true to me. He says, and he's talking about Vipassana meditation, and he's talking about being introspective and observing and watching stuff inside.
Yes.
But it applies to bodywork, and it applies to our existence in the world, and then also yoga world. And the phrase is, if I give attention to something without demanding that it be different, that very attentiveness has a profound transforming effect.
Yes.
Yes.
That's it.
That's it.
That's exactly,
So
that's the key.
Just the attention
Yeah.
is enough to change the vibration and things to change.
Yeah.
And as soon as you want to change, then it holds tighter.
Yes.
I had a really interesting experience when I needed to get rid of a lease on a practice that I had in the UK. We didn't want to have it anymore. We didn't want the responsibility. And so we had moved into a different house, and every time I left the clinic, I did the Kara-Leah mist things, and I cut the ties that bonded behind me as I walked down the road. And nothing happened. And we then went on a meditation retreat in Italy, and I forgot all about my work and all about the travels and that kind of stuff. It was a cool time. We were away for a couple of weeks, and when we got back, there was a message on the phone, and someone wanted to buy the lease and did buy it. And I realised that my cutting my ties that bonded as I was walking down the road was done with aversion. It wasn't done with that pure just letting go, and kind of being okay if it didn't, because that's the bottom line. And it's like, but going to Italy and just doing the course, everything dropped, and it was interesting to see that. So giving attention and just having that attention and being there for people is phenomenal. The kind of things that you can work with people, support them with. So
and empower them.
I'm really, we spoke about that yesterday on the phone. Empowerment. I think that's, if I can help someone empower them to be okay with who they are, then I've done my job.
Yeah.
If I can help someone be present in this moment with a bit more peace, then I've done my job. If I can communicate to them and share with them something that they can go home and do for themselves that allows them to be more present in this moment, and to then have an appreciation that just presence of being, understanding the power of this present moment, understanding the power of being present.
Yeah.
That's kind of my job, really.
It's hard for people, though, to be, my sense is it's hard for people to be present, simply because there is often so much stored in the system. And that when we start to come into presence, we start to feel that discomfort, that pain, that all the old stuff. And so it's like, I don't want to be present because I'll feel the shit.
Yes.
And yet, the only way through is to feel the shit.
Is to be there with it and be okay with it. You know, I still haven't met anyone who's enlightened.
No, me neither.
Isn't that weird? You know,
I'm curious.
I think it's. Hey folks, I don't think it exists.
Is there anyone out there in New Zealand we would like to know? Are there any enlightened people in New Zealand? Please get in touch. I'd love to have you on the couch. I want to have you on the couch.
Yes, please. Yeah. And I want to be on the couch with you too.
Yes.
You know, and I think it's such a cool thing to work towards. And when you look at, you know, all the senses of the Buddhist philosophies and yoga philosophies, and I think it's all, but I still haven't met anybody who's there. Still, it's interesting. I don't know.
I am noticing though, amongst my friends and the people I engage with and interact with, that there seems to be a general movement towards more awakeness, whereby there's less immersion in the mind, less immersion in the feelings, more attentiveness to presence, to being in the heart.
Yes. And
more freedom, just to be natural.
Yes. And
I wonder that, and I can't remember who it was. There's a guy I'm following on Instagram, Jeff. Is it Jeff Brown? Anyway, he was talking about, you know, screw enlightenment. It's really just enrealment.
Yes.
Becoming real.
Yes.
We are all becoming real, just like the velvet rabbit.
Absolutely. Totally. Being okay with all your flaws. Being okay with your dark side.
Yeah.
And not, you know, I think we need more tolerance in the world. And it's not just tolerance of people that we don't necessarily agree with, but tolerance of ourselves. and tolerance that we're not necessarily as pure and as noble as the Buddhist texts say you can get to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
So
I do.
I
think
need more tolerance.
In a way, I kind of see it like this is my avatar.
Yes.
You know, I'm like this character that I've been given, and I have a certain dharma. Like I came in with certain gifts or strengths or talents and weaknesses and darkness, and my life is set up in a particular way, and it's never going to be a different way. And coming to peace with how my character is in the video game, and then just enjoying the character, making the most of it.
But also being okay when you're not enjoying it, and being okay when the dark side comes.
I'm learning to enjoy the dark side.
Yeah?
I'm learning to enjoy.
You're learning to enjoy it.
Totally. It's like, oh, there's the darkness.
Yes.
Can I just enjoy? It's like the light and the dark, see it like that. And what I'm really interested in right now is who holds that.
Yes.
Holds it all.
Yes.
And so no longer being identified either with the light or with the dark.
Yes.
But the one who holds it all.
We used to go and see Krishnamurti talk.
Really?
Yeah.
You've seen him in real life?
Yeah, loads of times. Well, when I lived in the Buddhist community, we used to go to his place in Sussex every year. Mm-hmm. And one of the phrases he says is, no acceptance and no condemnation. So don't accept your stuff that's going on, because you only make it up anyway. You made you up, I made me up, and don't condemn it. And I think those two things are kind of quite cool to aspire towards.
So have you seen that? Did he strike you as someone who was enlightened?
I don't know.
You know?
No, I don't think so. I think he was just and I'm only talking from my point of view, I think he was an incredibly gifted spiritual man. I don't know whether he was enlightened. I don't know. I mean, I know lots of spiritual people who are really cool spiritual people, and I'm not sure if any of they're enlightened.
I'm just curious too. I'm reading his book right now, his notebook, which is simply just diary entries.
Yes, yeah.
And just the way he writes, there's very little personal identity.
Yes.
He uses the word I hardly at all.
Yes.
And it's very much about these states that he's experiencing that are just moving through him of just residing in bliss.
Probably was enlightened.
I don't know. It's very interesting to read. I'm like, what was going on with you?
Yeah, my wife loves reading his stuff.
Yeah.
And I think, and he was into just being in this present moment too.
Yeah.
He wasn't into doing a form of meditation, because the form's only there to help you move on. And if you stay too stuck with the form, you're doing something that's transformational. If you keep doing the same stuff, it's not going to transform you anymore, unless it changes somehow, unless you can go deeper. But if you keep doing the same stuff, if you want to transform, you need to do something else, because otherwise you keep reinforcing that old pattern of the technique, which keeps you stuck in the technique.
Yes.
So the technique's not the important thing, it's just being there. And those kind of things are really difficult. It's the same thing really, just giving attention to something without demanding that it be different. And then it has a chance to change.
What I'm noticing with practice is it feels more and more to me that the practice exists to activate a process. So when I sit and practice, it's like I'm getting out of the way, and things are dissolving, unfolding, setting themselves to right. It's just this releasing of old stuff.
Yes.
And that's what I'm like, it's not really about the practice. It's that the practice creates the conditions where the dissolving can just occur. Yeah,
the practice is, when I teach Spone Yoga, I'm sharing stuff to help people be curious and to look at the back of the spine and the front of the spine, to move from the way that the spine is designed to work. So the lumbar spine, the facets of the joints are vertical, which means that there's very little rotation, maybe about 2 or 3%. So if you rotate, then you can't rotate any more than that. And then you get to the lumbar thoracic junction and the vertebra then an oblique. So that allows more rotation, a bit restricted by the ribs. So we're looking at just being attentive to those movements of what's possible and what's allowed. And it's just through the attentiveness of your movement with the breath and being curious about the way that the spine might work. You know, the front of the spine, the ligaments that wrap all around it. The front of the, if you take the ligaments away, the front of the spine was going to do this. So this is the bulky part of the spine, the weight-bearing part of your spine. And if you were to take all the ligaments away from the back of the spine, it would all collapse. So I use these energetic movements, the way that the skeletal system's designed, to help with the movements. So when you're doing the cat-cow, if you do it from the front of your spine and allowing that natural movement, which is also related to the cavities as well, because the atmospheric pressure here is greater than here, that's greater than here. So there's always a desire for that higher atmospheric pressure to go into a low one. That's how we breathe. We don't breathe, we don't breathe in. We just make the space for the breath to come in. So the atmospheric pressure out there is greater than in here, and it comes in. And we think we go, but we don't. It's just that I've done something here that allows it to come in. So I'm using the body, the dynamics of the body and the way the skeleton works for people just to explore their internal mechanisms and what it is that's maybe tight or engaging. But it's just about being present. You know, it's not about changing things. I'm really into my yoga to not be competitive yoga. And so that people, I'm not into going deep into a fancy looking pose, because that's boring. You know, if you can get, you know,
there's nowhere to go then.
There's nowhere to go.
There's nowhere to go.
Yeah,
I think
but I'm really much more interested in what happens here. And if you look at the way that the shoulder is designed, the only bony articulation with the shoulder is the sternoclavicular joint here. All of the rest of it is free floating. So look at initiating your movement from this joint here. So this movement here, and when I do then extend my arm, then that's the journey, that's my fun part, and now I've got here and I then recoil. But this is, I'm not interested in this. I'm interested in often the first little bit, you know, the first part of your movement sets a tone for the rest of your movement. So if you just, if I just say move your arm, you move your arm like that. If I say now move your arm, but think about initiating that movement from here, if you could. Doesn't matter if you can or can't, but if you think about initiating that movement, what happens is that you think about it differently. Or if you use your breath like a second before you move. So if I'm saying move your head back like this, and I'm saying but before you move, use your breath, and you go, and then you move, then there's something else. So I'm trying always to give people things that they probably haven't maybe touched on before, and ways to look at, you know, when I'm forward bending, I'm exhaling. Sorry, when I'm forward bending, I'm inhaling.
And does that create more support? So you
no,
can
but you
can
can do, because you can create if you breathe in here. But I'm more focused on breathing at the back of the lungs here, because the lungs are bigger. So then I'm starting to utilize the movement of my rib cage, because your ribs want to do this and they want to do this and they want to do that. But if I'm just here, then when I'm forward bend, I have to breathe out because I'm creating pressure here and there's not so much room. But if I forward bend and I breathe here, and people go, I never knew you could even do that, or I never thought about it. Or moving your spine from the discs.
So
or
moving them from the discs.
What does that do for you? Or move from just the bones in your spine, or move from the back of it. Just so many different aspects of curiosity that I think allow you to get into that psychosomatic aspect of body-mind movement.
And that's it, it's embodiment, so moving out of the head and being aware of the felt sense of the body. Which is such a gift. And let's use that word gift.
That was very clever.
That was good,
How can we talk about this gift economy?
I want to talk about the gift economy, and I'm just aware of time. So
I don't know how long we've been chatting, a couple of hours.
Maybe a few hours. So the gift economy, so when you... when you price your services,
Yes.
how are you doing it? Because you have a different way of doing that now for some of the things, right?
Yeah, pretty much for most of the things I do now, I think it just comes from that same place that I want to do the things that are meaningful for me. And I don't think that the way that the world is structured supports me and a lot of people that I know. And that can I do something to change that? Do I really want to be part of the monetary system in the way that I'm supposed to be? Well, I don't have to be. So I came up with, and a lot of it is from Charles Eisenstein.
Yeah.
And I think he's an incredible, phenomenal intellect, but a kind of spiritual intellect.
Yeah,
you know, is that right?
Full of heart.
It's full of heart.
Full of heart, yeah.
And so the reciprocity gift economy is based on the stuff that the gift economy that he has. I've called it a reciprocity based gift economy. So I know that it could be gift or it could be reciprocity, which basically means that I give my services for free and you say, oh yeah, that's really cool, I would like to offer you this in return. And that offering for you has got that generosity to it. That's where the extension of that gift is. It's not my giving, and I give without wanting anything in return. And so it's been quite challenging, really.
Yeah.
Because to do that really fully means that I've got to let go of my whole lifetime of expecting something coming back. My mother paid for things. My mother was a victim of the Nazis and had to flee the Nazis. And so to get information about her father in the concentration camps, they had to pay people to get letters coming through. So every time that she would give something to someone, there would always be this thing wanting something back. And at a couple of the shows that we did together, I had some spare tickets that I gave away. And I thought, and this was the part of me, I have a little phrase that's called generosity is the new wealth. And I thought, hey,
generosity is the new wealth. That's worth repeating.
Yeah. So if I'm going to be, I want to be and wondering, why didn't she do that? I thought she was going to come and say something. She walked past my tent every time she went to the main stage. She had to see me.
So you're talking about the festivals? When you were giving me tickets away?
Yeah. And then I gave another ticket away, and this person said, "That's really cool." And it was that same thing, and I was trying to learn. This was pre me going into the gift economy.
Yeah.
And then at the end I said, "Hey, again, did you?" And she said, "Yeah." She said, "I'm really sorry, it was a little bit too far away where you were. Sorry I didn't come to see you." And it really taught me a lot about my reaction because I went, I wish I had just said, "Here's the ticket." Doesn't matter, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because it's me that's giving it. It's not what you give back to me. And so I kind of struggled with that a wee bit, and then I came up with the gift economy that worked for me, that I think would have helped me respond to that and just say, that's cool, it doesn't really matter. I mean, the enjoyment for me was giving you the ticket. And hey, it would have been nice if you had honoured it when you said you'd come and buy me lunch. But then I've also got to let go of that as well, because when you gift something, it's being gifted without anything coming back.
Yeah, it is a real practice, isn't it? And it's very subversive. Like to operate in the gift economy in our society, which is so indoctrinated within capitalism.
Yes.
Like it's such a deep indoctrination.
Yes.
To truly give with no expectation and trust that you will be supported.
Yes.
That in some way, shape or form, there is support.
Some way. I think most of us kind of know that on some level. One of my friends, he says, if I haven't got any money, I give it away because I know someone will come back.
Yeah, but to really live that though, like you said, it is a practice. It
is a practice, and we have to let go of all our conditioning around that as well. So my reciprocity based gift economy, I've got structures to it as well, but those structures are there to help people, because it's kind of, someone says, how much does it cost? I say, go onto my page and look at the gift economy that I'm working from, and people don't quite know how to do it. They just want to go,
they just want a price.
Is it $20 or is it $30? Just let me know.
Yeah.
And
people are really uncomfortable, right?
Uncomfortable. So I said, well, it could be anywhere between $18 and $28 if you want to look at a fee. And you can give around that, or you can give less, or you give nothing. But for me, see, this is still very new to me, so I'm still looking at how I can work with it, so I'm really comfortable with it. That you don't really have to give me anything back, or if you're looking at the reciprocity side, then we're in relationship. So I say, you say to me, "Hey Paul, how much are your sessions?" I say, "Well, I work on this system, but I used to charge X amount of dollars, so anything around that." And most people tend to give either that, a tiny little bit less, or a tiny little bit more. Or you say to me, really, I'm really hard pushed, and I'm having difficulty getting food on my plate for me and my son, and he hasn't had any new shoes for a year. And I'm going, well, I don't want to take your money so that your son doesn't have shoes. If this is, but you'd say to me, "Hey, look, I'm so good with, planting. I'll come around and spend a day working on, or an hour or two on your greenhouse," or something like that, so that we then start to have a relationship that then is meaningful. And it's a relationship. It's not just
it. It's relationships.
Yeah, it's all about relationships.
I think you're right. I think that is the thing, is that with money reduces the relationship and it becomes a transaction.
A transaction.
But once we take money out of it so much, and instead it becomes about, I freely give to you and you freely give whatever you want to give. Now we're in relationship with each other.
Yes. And then if there is a money transaction, it's part of the gift. It's not part of the transaction.
Yes, it's different. And I am noticing that people are uncomfortable with that, because feedback I've had, people are afraid of taking advantage of me.
Yes.
Or they feel like they don't have enough to offer.
Yeah,
and I'm like, but it doesn't matter. That's the whole point.
This is the whole part of it, is that they are being challenged, that they are going. And they might then go, "Hey, look, I normally would take advantage of this, but I can't because Kara-Leah's a cool person and I don't want to really do that. And I've got so much from her." So then it's good, because then they come up and they say, "Well, I think I'm going to give a little bit more, because I can afford it this month. So instead of paying you this, I'm going to pay you nearly double. And that's going to help you then still put food on your plate for your son, and being able to offer to other people more comfortably a session that they don't pay for." And then what happens if someone starts, and then I have the conversation that goes, where if someone just keeps kind of feeling like they're taking, well, it's a relationship. I don't have to have a relationship with that person. It's quite simple, isn't it? I don't know. It's a question.
So if someone was to keep coming to you for your for bodywork and
really not honouring anything and kind of going like that, well, I don't.
You can still choose.
I can say, well, I don't. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I don't go to someone else, because this isn't working for me. Because what I'm curious about is having a relationship with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say that to people too. I'm like, hey, it's just because on some of my services, it's like a negotiation, whereby people will make an offer, and then I accept the offer, and I might put terms in terms of, we'll do it over 4 equal payments or whatever it is. But I always say, look, I can say no. So you can't take advantage of me, because ultimately I have the power to say no.
Yeah, cool. I like that.
It's really clear.
It's clearer for me now hearing you say that. I made a lot of this up on my own.
I know, I'm making it up as well. Like, what works? What's easy for people, so people feel comfortable? Because that's the thing I'm noticing, is that people don't feel comfortable about not being able to offer what they would like to offer.
And I think that's cool for them to if we can feel comfortable saying that. I think that's a great place to be.
Because I want to work with people who are ready to do the work. And for me, if the only thing that's holding them back is their lack of finances, I'm like, fuck that. If you're ready, let's do this.
Absolutely.
Like, for me, the gift in watching somebody wake up and come into their power and recognize it's like, I receive so much from that.
That's what the reciprocity is all about. Is that there's a gift to the person that's giving.
I'll give you a good example of this. Actually, there was a woman who, she left a comment on one of my Facebook posts, and we engaged on that. And then she messaged me and she said, look, I'd love to do sessions with you, but I don't have any money right now, and et cetera, et cetera. And I said, well, if you were going to ask a question of me, what would you ask? because I can answer that in a video, and then I will speak directly to you. Like, I'll tune into your energy and I'll speak to you, knowing that the video will serve so many other people. And so I did that, and I did that yesterday. And then today she sent me a video response, like a 3-minute video response. And when I listened to her words and I felt her presence, like the gift that she gave me in that moment was just, it was priceless. It was extraordinary.
Can't pay for it.
No, not at all. And I was just like, oh my God, like this is why I'm doing this. This is what this is about. Like, we are here to support each other and to help each other home and to commodify the process of waking up.
Yes.
It doesn't land with me. Like,
Well, the world's becoming a more challenging place for humans to function. You know, and I think whatever we can do that helps support people being in relationship is going to be useful for the world.
I think if we're more present, and the more I feel like I'm accessing joy and amazingness and all of those things, the more I can radiate that. It feels like then that awakens it in other people.
Yes.
You know, and how epic is it? We don't need money to do that.
No.
Really
Money gets in the way. Anyway.
Money does get in the way a lot of the time. Yeah. Which at the same time, you know, if a client rocks up and says, hey, I want to hire you and I want to pay you 10 grand a month.
Oh yeah, I'd do that.
I'd be like, sweet, let's freaking do this. Let's see what happens. You know?
Yeah. I've got no problem with dealing with money.
Nah.
But I like to have the relationship about dealing with money.
Yeah.
And it kind of forces people to think a bit more than just the way that we know. The economy is going to collapse almost certainly quite soon. I think the world economy.
So if we're already working in this way,
then we're ahead of time.
We're ahead. So if you want to be ahead of the curve, I would highly suggest starting to look at how maybe you could transition to working. I mean, I do mixed model. So some of my business is in the gift economy, and some of it is a set fee. Yes. Depending on And
on my website, beingness.com, there's fees, and it's got a whole list of stuff about how I'm currently working with that gift economy. Please have a look if you're interested, and just take whatever you want from it, because I took it from somebody else and modified it. So I like the idea of things being
open source.
Open source.
I love that too. It's like
open source yoga, open source meditation, open source bodywork, all that kind of stuff.
Because we're only bringing it through. It is not ours.
No.
How can we own an idea?
No.
It might have come through us, but it might come through that person or come through that
person.
person.
I'm inspired by people all the time. I'm continue to do online. I've just done one of Leslie Kaminoff's online training, and it was fantastic. And he's sharing this stuff, and when he's on a roll, he's just all this information he keeps regurgitating, just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I pick up stuff and I use it. That's what it's all about. He did from someone else, and I share it with someone else, and they use it. I'm doing one of Amy's courses as well at the moment as well. So
Amy
Matthews, his co-writer of the book.
Yep.
So, and they're very, very different styles. But yeah, all the time I'm looking at to be inspired by other people, and then I use that inspiration to inspire what I'm doing and to take my work. Often when I'm doing my yoga, I'm thinking about how I can communicate it in different ways to people. As part of my teaching or part of my sharing. Just if you're interested to know more, I'm really open for you to contacting me. I teach bone yoga bodywork, I teach bone yoga. I'm probably going to do a series of videos quite soon.
Awesome.
So that people can hook into it doing it that way, so that they can do it in the comfort of their living room. So I've got plans. So we'll see where they might go.
Excellent. So if you're watching this in a year or 2 years' time...
Oh, no, less than that.
Less than that. If you're watching this in 3 months' time...
Maybe, Or in 2 years' time,
There'll be videos. There'll be bone yoga videos that you can access.
Yes.
How cool is it? It's like a time capsule, you realise?
It is, isn't it?
We've just created this
forever,
time capsule.
Isn't it?
It is,
Yes.
I mean, we might come back in a decade and do an update.
Yes. And I'm really, and I'm curious to know how people think about that whole system of gift economy as well.
Yeah.
Well, we both are, because we both work on that.
Absolutely.
And anything around working on the bones and skeleton, and it's a fascinating body tissue to work on.
Yeah, so please leave your questions in the comments when you're watching this. If you have any questions about the gift economy, any questions about the skeletal system, energy in the bones, just throw them down. We'll come on when they come up and answer them. Or if you're working in the gift economy, would love to know about your experience, so please leave it in the comments. Alrighty, I think that's a wrap. We're done. Over and out, y'all.
Thank you.